Unveiled, 7 shocking sexual rituals of ancient Egypt that haunted society forever. In the heart of ancient Egypt, where the sun beats down relentlessly and the Nile flows like blood through the land, shocking secrets lay buried. Imagine a time when love was entwined with bizarre rituals, cloaked in mystery. This was not just a society, it was a world of glimmering gold and whispered passions, where the strangest customs thrived under the watchful eyes of the gods. Picture the lavish ceremonies, the flickering torches casting eerie shadows on temple walls as priests and priestesses danced in ecstatic abandon. The air vibrated with anticipation, an energy that made the hair on your arms stand up. One such ritual involved the revered goddess Hathor, known as the ultimate embodiment of beauty and sexuality. Devotees gathered at her temple, painted in vivid hues of ochre and lapis lazuli, offering their bodies in a joining of flesh and spirit. Men and women alike took part, moving to drumbeats that resonated deep in their chests, blurring the line between sacred and profane. The scent of incense hung thick, suffocating yet intoxicating, as they surrendered to the frenzy. But what made these gatherings truly chilling? The whispers spoke of ecstatic rapture turning to horrifying violence, of sacred love morphing into sacrilege right before the audience's eyes. As the rituals progressed, tension would rise to a sharp peak, mouth-watering and alarming all at once. A chill would sweep through the crowd, sending shivers down their spines. What would happen next? Could they trust their own eyes? In a society where every act was intertwined with destiny, each kiss, each caress, transformed into a gamble against the very forces of fate. The anxiety was palpable, each heartbeat echoing loudly in a world of morbid fascination. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Yet, far beyond the temple's walls, secrets brewed like a storm on the horizon. As the moon hung low and full, casting a silver glow on the landscape, the people of the land would whisper of a dark ritual hidden from the eyes of even the most devoted. Was it true? Were there rituals so steeped in depravity that they could chill the soul? Bodies once joined in fervor lay lifeless in corners, whispers of their fates curling in smoke. The truth was out there, waiting. What had they stumbled upon that would forever haunt them? A hushed murmur rippled through the gathering as the priests took their positions, their faces painted with symbols designed to invoke both fear and reverence. Candles flickered ominously, casting long shadows that danced like phantoms across the dirt floor of the temple. The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of myrrh, and a foreboding energy crackled, pulsing with the rhythm of the impending ritual. Among the onlookers, an inexplicable tension gripped Sarah, a young woman visiting from a distant village. She had heard the stories told among the flickering fires at night that in this temple, not all rituals culminated in bliss. There was a dark underbelly, a hidden agenda that left a bitter aftertaste in the mouths of those brave enough to speak of it. As the high priest raised his staff adorned with obsidian, the drumming intensified. With each beat, it felt as though the very earth was responding, restless and alive with anticipation. Bodies swayed rhythmically, lost in the throes of devotion, or despair. The high priestess' voice boomed, weaving incantations that wrapped around the crowd, drawing them in, binding them to the ancient rites that had once brought exaltation but now carried a sinister weight. At the center of the circle, a woman with wild hair and hauntingly beautiful features stepped forward. Known as the Oracle, she was said to commune with the gods directly. But shadows darted in her eyes, hinting at a knowledge too terrible to bear. For a moment, silence enveloped the crowd, heavy as the golden headdresses that adorned them. From ecstasy, we plunge into darkness, her voice echoed, low and sultry, gripping Sarah's heart like icy fingers. The bond fascinated by lust may lead to destruction. A gasp swelled within the crowd, igniting fear. What was meant to be a celebration teetered on the brink of calamity. The oracle began her dance, fluid and serpentine, each movement betraying an otherworldly grace. Yet, with every spin and turn, Sarah felt an eerie shift in the atmosphere. The drums fell into a frantic pace, matching the quickening pulse in her own chest. Around her, others whispered, eyes wide as fear became palpable. The festive air warped, twisting into something darker. And then chaos erupted. A figure, clad in ragged cloth and marked with the symbol of a curse, lunged forward from the shadows. Murmurs turned to screams as the trespasser raised a dagger, glinting cruelly under the torchlight. Panic spun outward, people tumbling back in a desperate attempt to escape the carnage. Sarah froze, the oracle's eyes locked onto hers, a silent plea buried in the depths of them. "Seek the truth beneath the blood," the oracle shouted, just before the world around Sarah fractured into pandemonium. The cries of the innocent echoed, mingling with the fierce beats of the drums. The once sacred ground was stained in more than just the sweat of primal passion. As chaos grasped the temple in its iron grip, Sarah's gaze traveled to the dying embers of hope. Could she find the truth buried within such horror? Or would the secrets of the dark ritual consume her, too? The air grew thick with impending doom, and just as her heart threatened to shatter, the night spun further into madness. What awaited beyond this terrible unveiling? The dagger gleamed like a fallen star as it arced through the chaos, held aloft by the figure that defied all sanity. Sarah's heart raced, pounding against her ribs like a desperate prisoner. In that moment, time itself seemed to twist, stretching out the horrific tableau before her. The oracle's eyes narrowed, and the world around Sarah blurred, the frantic drumming becoming a distant roar. People screamed, their faces masks of fear, confusion, and desperation. The heavy scent of myrrh now mingled with the thick, metallic stench of blood. A chilling realization washed over her: if she stayed rooted in place, she would become just another casualty in this ritual gone terribly wrong. With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah glanced around, searching for an escape, a hiding place, something to shield her from the storm of panic that had engulfed the temple. Just to her left, a cluster of bodies surged against each other, scrambling to retreat from the lurking threat. They collided with wooden pillars, the space between them shimmering with potential, with safety. Could she slip through? Gathering her breath, she dove toward them, her body low, almost sliding on the dirt. Voices around her drowned in a cacophony of dread. Footsteps thundered like war drums as a few brave souls attempted to confront the attacker, their courage floundering as the blade glinted ominously in the guttering torchlight. "Get down!" Someone shrieked, and the warning sent Sarah sprawling to the ground, a collective gasp of horror echoing in her ears. It felt surreal, suffocating. Was she losing her grip on reality? The oracle's plea echoed, "Seek the truth beneath the blood," but all Sarah could think about was survival. As she crawled, she caught a glimpse of the oracle. The woman moved with a surreal fluidity, her dance now a desperate attempt to encapsulate the chaos, weaving around the ragged figure. And then, as if sensing something, the oracle's gaze flicked towards Sarah. Time froze. In that fraction of a second, it was as though the oracle tried to impart a message beyond words, a silent invitation or perhaps a warning, but before Sarah could process what she felt, the figure lunged again. A wild shriek split the air, the sound vibrating within her bones. The crowd thrashed about, falling into a frenzied panic. Some were trying to escape, others were bowing down in an unfamiliar form of worship or disbelief. Something dark and ancient had awakened, and it was hungry. Sarah propelled herself forward, driven by an instinct she couldn't identify. As she ducked behind a pillar, she felt the thud of the earth beneath her, alive with a pulse that echoed her own heartbeat. Panic was a heavy cloak draped around her shoulders, but there was also resolve nestled deep within the terror. The oracle danced closer, her movements sharp and deliberate, as if directing the chaos. Was she trying to divert attention, to shield the very essence of what Sarah sought? It dawned on Sarah then, the truth was intertwined with this madness. Drawing unwanted strength from that chaotic energy, Sarah peered around the pillar. The assailant was now engaged in a fray with a few priests, their shadowy figures battling under the dim light. The urgency of survival intersected with a thirst for knowledge amid the storm. Find the heart of the ritual. The oracle's voice rang out, clear and commanding. What heart? What truth lay hidden beneath the blood that stained the temple floor? As Sarah's pulse quickened, she realized time was slipping away. A new question clawed at her: could she unveil the dark secret before it consumed everyone around her? Just then, a bone-chilling scream sliced through the melee, sending icy fingers of dread racing up Sarah's spine. The darkness was rising, and it was calling her name. What would she uncover when the veil of chaos finally fell? Sarah's heart pounded like a relentless metronome as she hugged the cool stone pillar, the oracle's words echoing in her mind: find the heart of the ritual. But where to look in this pandemonium? She peered through the swirling shadows, every scream slicing as she focused on the flickering shadows orchestrated by the frantic movements of the priests and the assailant. The fray continued, bodies colliding, each connection reverberating through her as tension twisted with fear. Cold sweat clung to her skin. The sound of clashing wood and cries wrapped around her, forming a cacophony that drowned out any rational thought. With a fierce determination she didn't know she possessed, Sarah rolled out from behind her makeshift shield. The chaos seemed to momentarily part like the sea before Moses, and she bolted toward the altar at the center of the room. Shadows loomed threateningly, but the heart of the ritual pulsed there, masked by the sacrifice of fear. As she approached, her instinct screamed at her to turn back. The air thickened with dread, heavy and suffocating. Yet, she pressed on. Time twisted again, every second hanging with an unbearable weight. Moments were crowded with the impending sense of disaster. In the frenzy of movement, she discerned an aura, dark yet captivating, hovering over the altar, a cluster of items meant for the ritual. Was the heart there, waiting to be unveiled? She threw herself onto the altar, rummaging through a tangle of ancient relics, her fingers trembling as she grasped a small, intricately carved idol. Its cool stone felt alive against her skin, pulsating with every hurried heartbeat. She turned it toward the flickering light, and what met her eyes was a sight that sent shivers coursing down her spine. The face of an ancient deity, twisted in ecstasy and pain, seemed to echo the chaos surrounding her. Behind her, a sudden shout jolted her to attention. The assailant had gained the upper hand, forcing a priest to the ground. Foolish mortals! He roared, the dagger flashing with malevolence. This power is beyond any of you. Instinctively, Sarah tucked the idol against her chest, feeling its cool energy seep into her very core. It was a link to something primal, something she could use. Finally, the pieces began to fit together. As the oracle had said, blood was the binding element. But the heart of this ritual was not only about blood, it was about truth, power, and the reckoning of a darkness that threatened to consume them all. Just then, the oracle, now illuminated by a flickering torchlight, approached the battered ground with fierce grace. You must make a choice, Sarah. Control it or be controlled. The intensity in her voice struck deep. Was she ready to face this darkness? To fully embrace whatever power surged through her veins? Loud cracks echoed as the altar vibrated, the ground quaking underfoot. Sarah's heartbeat synced with the idol in her hand, a whirlwind of power colliding with fear. Could she harness this ancient force to save everyone, or would it inevitably consume her as it had claimed so many before? As bodies writhed around her, Sarah realized she was standing at the precipice. A decision loomed before her. Will she stand strong and defy the darkness, or will she be swept away by its seductive embrace? Before she could wrestle with the choice, the walls shook violently, breaking her concentration. Shadows loomed larger. The oracle's warning echoed louder. In that heartbeat of uncertainty, would Sarah's decision unravel the very fabric of this dark ritual? The outcome hung like a breath in the air, and then the ground beneath her began to crack. The crack beneath Sarah's feet splintered like frozen glass, sending shards of panic racing through her mind. The altar shuddered violently, rattling ancient relics as dust swirled into the air, thick and choking. The idol felt sharper against her skin, a heartbeat almost synchronized with the frantic thrum of her own. She knew that whatever was about to happen, whatever choice she might make, could unravel everything. That in the chaos, shadows danced wildly, drawing close like hungry wolves. The assailant laughed maniacally, a chilling sound slicing through the chaos. You think you can control it? You're nothing more than a pawn. He lunged toward her, dagger glinting wickedly as it sliced the air. Sarah barely had time to react. She flung her hand out, instinctively channeling all her fear and desperation into the idol. For a fraction of a second, the world around her seemed to pause. The shadows halted, the cries vanished, and she felt a clarity sharp as a knife. Control it. The oracle's voice echoed, threading through her panic. Sarah closed her eyes, clearing her mind. She focused, drawing on the ancient energy trapped within the idol. The air pulsed around her as if responding to her command. A blinding light burst forth from the idol, illuminating the room in an otherworldly glow. The shadows writhing around her screeched in agony, retreating back as the darkness recoiled from the fierce brightness. What are you doing? The assailant faltered, his voice wavering as he took a hesitant step back. I'm not your pawn anymore, Sarah shouted, the power coursing through her like wildfire. I am its master. With a swift motion, she thrust the idol forward. A beam of light struck the assailant, and with an ear-splitting scream, he crumpled to the ground, his body engulfed in shadow as he vanished into nothingness. But the victory was not as cathartic as she envisioned. The ground continued to shake, the altar splintered under the weight of something unseen pushing back against her newfound power. The chaos that had momentarily dissipated surged back, more chaotic than before. Now you've done it. A nearby priest yelled, terror etched on his face. You've unleashed it. Sarah's heart sank. What had she let loose? The shadows were no longer simply menacing, they now teemed with a life of their own, twisting and swirling with fierce intent. What do we do? She yelled to the oracle, but the woman's expression was grave. You have awoken something that lies deep within these walls. It will not rest. The altar's fabric seemed to twist and curl, revealing hidden symbols that glowed ominously. They pulsed a shade darker than shadows, a darkness laden with ancient secrets and untamed magic. Panic swelled within her chest. Stepping back, Sarah felt the weight of the idol pulling her down, urging her toward its power. Yet the thought of fully yielding to it terrified her. Would wielding this force free her kind, or would it doom them all? Sarah. A familiar voice rose above the tumult. She turned to see Michael, his face pale, running toward her through the rift of darkness. Get out of here. Before it's too late. But in her heart, Sarah felt an inexplicable connection to the pulsing, ancient energy, a magnetic draw that promised both salvation and ruin. The choice loomed larger than before. As the shadows swirled and converged around her, Sarah could either seal the darkness away or risk everything by diving into its depths. Would she take the leap into the unknown, or could she resist its haunting call? The answer danced just beyond her reach, taunting her as the darkness writhed closer. The shadows writhed like serpents, closing in around Sarah. Each movement sent chills racing down her spine, tightening the knot of terror in her stomach. The altar pulsed as if it had a life of its own, beckoning her to surrender to the energy coursing through her veins. Sarah. We need to run. Michael's voice cut through the chaos, shaking her from her trance. His eyes were wide, filled with an urgency that sent alarm bells ringing in her mind. But could she truly flee? The connection to the idol felt more than an invitation, it was a call, a whisper of ancient power that painted vivid images of all it could give her. What if leaning into it could save them? As if reading her thoughts, the oracle stepped forward, eyes locked onto Sarah's. You must resist. The darkness is deceitful. Deceitful or not, it's the only thing standing between us and whatever else is in this place. Sarah shouted back, feeling her heart race faster. Michael reached for her, his hand brushing against hers. The warmth of his touch was a stark contrast to the cold penetrating the air. "You don't have to do this alone. I trust you, but we must leave." A pulse of shadow surged toward him, capturing the moment in eerie silence. Fear gripped Sarah as she watched Michael dodge the dark tendril that reached for his throat. The shadows were alive, intelligent, their hunger palpable. "No!" she cried, instinctively raising the idol yet again, the trembling artifact between them like a shield. A surge of light exploded from the idol, pushing the shadows back. The ancient symbols danced wildly, raw magic swirling with the light. "See? You can fight it," Michael encouraged, his voice strong despite the encroaching darkness. But Sarah felt the dilemma tightening like a noose around her neck. Could she fight the urge to wield the power fully, to command it against these forces? Or would that only bring destruction? The altar trembled again, more violently. Broken vines of darkness unfurled, racing toward her in angry coils. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, focusing on the whisper of ancient energy. "What do I do?" she begged, her heart racing with fear and responsibility. "Embrace it, Sarah. Learn its true intent." The oracle urged, but her tone held a tremor that suggested danger. "It's your choice. But be warned, power comes with a price." But was it worth the risk? Could she handle the consequences? The shadows laughed, a cacophony of voices intertwining, encroaching on her mind. Sucking in her breath, Sarah felt the pulse of the idol swell. She could see the darkness in her mind, the forgotten dreams, the buried secrets, the relentless questioning of her worth. It all started to mix with the shadows, blurring the lines between reality and the deep void. "Sarah!" Michael shouted again, breaking through her thoughts. "You have to make a choice. Now." The energy surged, resonating within her, urging her to embrace both the light and the darkness, a balance so precarious it could shatter her foundation. Was it hope, or was it damnation? The choice loomed like a shadow over her heart. Would she succumb to its call, or defy it and fight for what remained of their world? And in that split moment, as the darkness screamed its promise, Sarah's vision sharpened. The answer lay not just within the idol, but also in her own heart. She opened her eyes, locking gazes with Michael, determination igniting within her. Together, she whispered, feeling the rush of clarity surging through her, buoyed by their connection. But as the shadows lunged once more, the altar trembled violently, teasing the boundaries of all she had ever known. Together, she reiterated, even as the darkness twisted and roared, demanding her to choose. The horror was leading somewhere darker than she had imagined. What would emerge if she did grasp that power, and what would it bring into the world? The oppressive weight of the choice she faced loomed larger than any shadow, lurking in the depths of uncertainty. The shadows danced and howled, their grip tightening around Sarah and Michael. Time felt distorted, as if they were encased in a frozen moment of dread. Her breath quickened, each inhale heavy with uncertainty. The altar shook beneath her, a heart pulsing with dark intent. "Together!" she shouted to Michael, her voice breaking the eerie silence. She raised the idol high, the light emanating from it illuminating the swirling gloom. It felt both unstable and intoxicating, like standing at the edge of a cliff, peering into the abyss below. But the shadows wouldn't relent. They surged forward, howling with a hunger that rattled her bones. The air pulsed with their cold touch, an icy grip that clawed at her skin. Sarah felt the warmth of Michael beside her, a tether to her humanity amidst the madness. "Stay close," he shouted, his eyes alight with determination even as fear flickered in the back. Sarah turned her focus back to the altar, willing the light to grow stronger. But with more energy came the weight of choices pressing down on her. "Embrace the power fully," the oracle cried, desperation coloring her tone. "But no, darkness without wisdom leads to chaos. Can't you see it's a trick?" Sarah yelled back, infused with frustration. The shadows pulsed with mockery, shadows capering at the edge of her vision. But she felt the power shifting inside her, palpable and alive. In that moment, the altar erupted in a violent burst of energy. An image formed in her mind, a vision of devastation, of city streets engulfed in shadows, twisted faces of people clawing for salvation they would never find. She flinched, feelings of loss and despair gnawing at her. No. I want to let it consume me. The idol glowed brighter, the light piercing the dark tendrils like arrows. For an instant, she saw through the overwhelming essence of rage and chaos. What if instead of battling the darkness, she could weave it into a greater force for good? Michael, we need to face it together. Sarah urged, locking eyes with his. It's not just about fighting it. We need to discover what it truly means. What if it means your destruction? He asked, desperation lurking in every word. I have to try, she whispered, feeling her resolve harden. She had glimpsed the secrets of power, as alluring as they were terrifying. With a deep breath, she steeled herself, lifting the idol once more. Look away. She warned Michael, feeling the energy rippling around her as she closed her eyes. Tendrils of shadow wrapped around her mind, threatening to pull her into chaos. But she stood firm, her heart thrumming wildly against the tide of desperation. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the air. It wasn't just the shadows, it came from the oracle. Sarah! You don't know what you're doing. The shadows froze, their writhing forms suddenly solidifying into a mass of fear and despair. Her pulse quickened, every instinct told her to retreat. But she pushed forward and summoned every ounce of light she could conjure. In the light's intensity, the shadows recoiled. It felt almost like a dance, a clash of extremes, light pulling back the veil on the darkness truth. It had a voice, a history woven into its very fabric. Could it be controlled? Breathe, Sarah. I'm with you. Michael's voice cut through the chaos. But was she still in control? The weight of the choice bore down on her as she waded deeper into the unknown. She plunged into the depths of what it meant to own the darkness without being consumed. What came next? Would the shadows reveal their secrets or swallow them whole? As the battleground of light and shadow shifted once more, Sarah gripped the idol. The true test lay ahead, an unveiling of layers that could change everything. Fear wrapped around her heart. What would it cost them? Would she unlock power or a gateway to doom? The air crackled, a tangible electricity that hummed in Sarah's ears, drowning out her racing thoughts. Shadows writhed around her like serpents, their eyes glinting with malicious curiosity, as if waiting to see how her struggle would unfold. Tendrils of darkness wrapped tighter around her, but she pressed on, fighting to wield the light within her. Sarah, wait. Michael grabbed her arm, his grip firm but desperate. Are you sure this is the right path? We can still escape. His wide eyes reflected panic, and she felt the raw intensity of his fear seep into her resolve. Her heart fluttered. Escape? In that moment, it felt like a betrayal. She couldn't abandon the fight, not now. No! She exclaimed, the word bursting from her lips. If we turn back now, everything will be lost. The shadows surged forward, almost as if sensing their hesitation, twisting and curling around her like hungry hands. It was suffocating. Each breath hurt, filling her lungs with dread. Yet, the idol pulsed with an undeniable rhythm, mirroring the frantic beat of her heart. Together, remember? She whispered to herself, mustering courage. Face the darkness. As the shadows lunged, she closed her eyes and embraced the energy of the idol. Light exploded from her, a brilliant flare that shattered the oppressive darkness. Visions typically reserved for divine beings flooded her mind. She saw them, people lost in despair, their faces etched with sorrow, all reaching for something, someone, but then, a new image pierced through. A young girl, wide-eyed and innocent, peering over her shoulder in a dilapidated alley. She was surrounded, darkness beckoning her into its grasp. Help me. echoed in Sarah's mind, strangling her with guilt and urgency. Sarah. Michael's call cut through her stupor, pulling her back to the present. You're glowing. The shadows, they're scared, she breathed, astonished by her own power. With each pulse of light, the encroaching darkness retreated, shrieking in rage as they clawed at the unyielding blaze. Use it! Michael shouted, his voice now a fierce rallying cry. Don't just let it happen, take control. Sarah clenched her jaw, forcing her body to steady. She needed clarity. The shadows had a language, a rhythm that twisted through the air. If she could decipher it, maybe she could wield it. She thought of the girl, helpless and alone. Time warped around them as images swirled around her, every flicker of light birthed whispers of shadow, revealing rituals and histories long lost. A pact, a sacrifice. The darkness craved something in return. What would it demand? I refuse to be its puppet, she declared, voice steady. In that moment, the shadows seemed to pause, as if weighing her words. The specters transformed, shapes shifting from grotesque to hauntingly familiar. Faces she recognized, lost friends, voices from her past, calling out to her in anguish. It was not just darkness, it was her fear, her unresolved memories, her pain laid bare. Let it out. Michael urged, stepping closer, his warmth radiated against the frigid night. You can't hold it inside anymore. The idol vibrated wildly in her hands. In an instant, Sarah knew what she had to do. She gathered her strength, channeling both light and darkness. It felt liberating yet terrifying. The shadows howled in protest as her thoughts coalesced, merging into a single powerful incantation. The altar trembled violently, causing the ground to shake beneath them. Pieces of the past shattered around her like fragile glass. Each moment of hurt she had buried surged to the surface, raw and exposed. But alongside the pain, there was resolve. Those shadows are part of me. She cried, directing the surge toward the altar. And I will not be ruled by them. In a blinding rush, Sarah drove the raw energy down, merging it with the essence of the idol. A flash of brilliance erupted, sending shockwaves through the air. The shadows writhed and surged, their screams piercing the chaos as everything collapsed into a singularity of light and darkness, and then, silence. As the dust settled, her heart raced in a void of uncertainty. Had they truly defeated the shadows, or simply unleashed something more terrifying? A silhouette emerged from the haze, two glowing eyes staring back, revealing an unspeakable twist lurking just beneath the surface. What had she awakened? What dark truth awaited them? The silhouette stepped closer, and Sarah's breath hitched in her throat. The air thickened with dread, every particle vibrating with the palpable essence of something wild and dangerous. The glow from the figure's eyes intensified, flickering like flame against the wreckage that surrounded them. Who are you? Michael's voice trembled, the strength he'd shown moments before now barely a whisper. The figure remained silent, drawing nearer with a grace that defied the chaos around it. Shadows danced at its feet, licking hungrily at the ground. Sarah could feel her heart pounding against her ribs, a frantic drummer urging her to take action or run. But running was no longer an option. As the figure stepped into the light, Sarah's chest constricted. What she saw was both beautiful and horrifying, a face twisting between familiarity and otherworldliness. Features of loved ones blended with those of long-forgotten myths, creating an eyesore that held her gaze captive. Sarah, the figure spoke, its voice a haunting echo of her own thoughts. You called to me. You've awakened the darkness. Awakened? I thought I was fighting it. Sarah shouted, defiance flooding her veins. But deep down, she felt the truth of the figure's words, gnawing at her insides. The glowing eyes narrowed, a wicked smile breaking across its features. You've always been drawn to it. Alluring, captivating like a moth to flame. It whispers your secrets, your fears, your darkest desires. And now, it can take form. Michael shifted nervously beside her, the weight of realization crashing down upon him. You mean this creature, it feeds on our fears? Our regrets? The figure laughed lightly, the sound a chilling wind sweeping through the ruins. Your wounds have never healed, dear ones. Embrace them, and you will discover true power. Fight them, and the darkness will devour you both. Sarah grit her teeth, the words slicing through her resolve. I won't give in. I can control it. Another laugh. Control? Oh sweet child, you're only beginning to understand. The more light you shine, the deeper those shadows grow. One cannot exist without the other. Amidst the swirling obscurity around her, Sarah's mind raced. Could she truly harness the shadows? Memories she had buried, shameful moments, and scars long ignored flooded her mind. The girl from the alley circled back into focus. What if she could save her? Help her. She screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. If you have power, then help me save her. The figure paused, intrigued. You wish to save a lost soul? Does she not mirror the parts of you that you wish to discard? Enough! Michael shouted, stepping forward. This isn't about her. It's about us. We need to fight this. We can't give in to what it wants. In that moment, Sarah felt a shift. The shadows around them pulsed, as if reacting to the surge of their combined energy. Perhaps they could fight together. But what if together was the very thing the darkness wanted? Suddenly, the air turned frigid, chilling them to the core. The figure's form grew indistinct, shifting back into the shadows that had once receded into bright light. Struggle, dance, fight, it only makes this more fun, it taunted. Before vanishing into the abyss, the ground rumbled beneath them once more, shaking with a newfound intensity. Panic bubbled in Sarah's chest. What do we do now? She asked breathlessly, glancing nervously at Michael. Force it back, he replied, a determined fire igniting in his eyes. You're stronger than this. Use everything you've learned, everything you know. Harness the dark and the light. What if I can't? She whispered, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her. Then we fall together, Michael answered, taking her hands. In that moment, the warmth between them felt divine. Together, she echoed, drawing strength from his grip. As the shadows surged, ready to consume them once more, Sarah inhaled deeply and summoned the energy stored within her. Light burst forth, dancing through the darkness. But beneath that light, the whispers returned, lingering in the corners of her mind. What if? Her greatest fear wasn't losing to the darkness, but becoming part of it. As she fought against the shadow, the lines between light and dark blurred, and she felt herself slipping into an abyss of doubt. Was it power or poison she held? With every pulse of light, she plunged deeper, unsure of what awaited her in the darkness below. But one thing was certain, the truth was lurking just beyond her grasp, and it was hungry. The ground trembled with a ferocity that rattled Sarah's bones. Shadows clawed at the edges of her vision, desperate to consume her as vibrations of chaos surged through the air. Michael squeezed her hands tighter, grounding her in the tumult. Together, they formed an unbreakable bond against the encroaching darkness. Remember who you are, Sarah, he urged, his voice steady yet urgent. You're not just a vessel for power. You are its wielder. In that moment of clarity, Sarah closed her eyes and centered herself, feeling the electricity hum beneath her skin. She focused on the idol, the beautifully carved stone pulsating with an energy that resonated deep within her core. For each moment of fear, she drew forth memories of hope, love, and resilience, every flicker of light pushing back against the darkness. With renewed resolve, she exhaled the doubt that clouded her mind, the fear that she might lose herself in the shadows. The specters swelled around her, expanding and contracting with hunger, their dark whispers rising to a deafening crescendo. But she would not be swept away. I accept you, Sarah shouted, her voice echoing through the temple, and I will not be ruled by you. A blinding light erupted from the idol, pushing the shadows back with a force that took her breath away. The specters writhed and shrieked, their forms distorting under the intensity of her light. Michael stepped beside her, his presence a beacon of strength. Together, they unleashed an incandescent wave that washed over the chaos, illuminating faces filled with regret and pain. "What if we intertwine the shadows with our light?" he proposed, eyes steadfast on the fading darkness. "What if that's the true balance?" Sarah felt a surge of understanding, a revelation piercing through her fog of uncertainty. The shadows weren't just a danger, they were a part of her, representing every part of her that she had tried to bury. She took a step forward, determined to confront not only the darkness around her, but the darkness within. "I will wield this power not just to fight but to understand," she declared, filled with newfound purpose. With a firm grip on the idol, she reached deep within herself. A swirling dance of light and shadow began to manifest, a delicate balance of opposites. As the shadows recoiled from her overpowering glow, she began to emit a faint pulse that resonated through the temple's very foundation. The shadows, entranced, began to twist and shift, morphing into shapes that whispered stories long buried. Sarah breathed rhythmically, pouring out intentions of unity, not destruction. The air thickened with tension as she channeled the energy, and she could feel Michael's hand clasping hers tighter, his strength feeding her resolve. The figures of those lost emerged, faint images flickering in and out of the light. In them, she recognized the faces of friends, relatives, and strangers, all swept away by their past grievances. "I see you," Sarah cried, her voice reverberating, full of compassion. "I acknowledge your pain. Join me, let us heal instead of hiding." The shadows paused, as if weighing her words. A low hum filled the air, a melody woven from grief and hope, echoing across the temple, softening the noise of turmoil. The darkness began to pulse in response, as if acknowledging her plea. "Together, we can heal," Michael echoed, his voice unwavering. "Together, we can become whole." With her heart full of determination, Sarah focused her thoughts on the swirling mass of shadows, pouring light into them, gently merging the two forces. The brightness where the shadows had once been looked almost alive, pulsating with potential rather than threat. Light reached out, enveloping the darkness until it began to transform, no longer seeking to devour, but instead intertwining with sparks of brilliance. A gasp echoed through the temple. The oracle, witnessing the shift, whispered, "You're understanding the truth." The shadows grew softer, morphing into images of joy, liberation, and love. The temple was awash in a soft, warm glow. Moments stretched as time melted away, a tapestry of luminous shadows enveloping Sarah and Michael. Breathless, they watched as figures from forgotten memories began to embrace the light, their forms healing, transforming into mere wisps of what was lost. Suddenly, a thunderous clap roared through the air, shaking the very foundation of the temple. Sarah felt a wave of primal energy surge through her, the balance she had forged igniting a chain reaction. The place trembled with ancient echoes, both sorrowful and joyous, as sparking energy danced along the walls that had once held so much despair, now vibrated with promise. As the shadows fully shifted, dark and light combined into a singular force, illuminating the space around them. The temple transformed into a sacred ground, barren edges filled with lush greenery, flowers bursting forth from the relics of the past. "We did it!" Michael exclaimed, his voice ashore against the tide of residual chaos. "Yes, together!" she gasped, wrapping her arms around him as the last echoes of darkness dispersed into the stratosphere. A calm settled, the air full of potential. They stood resilient against the remnants of fear, having faced their demons, embraced their shadows, and emerged transformed. As dawn broke outside, the sun cast brilliant rays through the temple, illuminating the path ahead. They stepped out into a new world, a landscape forever changed, one of healing, renewal, and resilience. Their bond unbreakable, they left the temple, knowing that together, they would continue to uncover the realities hidden beneath the surface, embracing every moment with courage. And that was the last piece, sparkling like the sun upon the water. They had sought and found balance. So now is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to this channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the magic alive. I want to hear from you all, so flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, we build this amazing community.